My name is R.T. Fitch from the Wild Horse Freedom Federation, and on behalf of all of the equine welfare organizations represented here, we would like to welcome the press, you folks who took time out of your lives to be here in person, and the good people who are watching us stream as we speak right now live. I would like to introduce the individual who was instrumental in putting together this press conference and is also the founder and director of Respect4horses, Simone Netherlands. Simone?
Thank you, RT. So, the way to help horses is to eat more of them. That's what they would like us to believe. We're here today with all of us horse welfare organizations and animal welfare organizations together to stand up and educate America, Oklahomans, and communities everywhere of the deception that's going on and coming from the horse slaughter faction. So this press conference is about horse welfare, but not just about horse welfare. It is also about the welfare of the communities that they're targeting for opening horse slaughter plants in. It is also about the welfare of our taxpayer. Our taxpayer dollars will be going towards paying for USDA inspectors that will have to inspect the horse meat. It is even about the welfare of the end consumer who is unknowingly consuming toxic meat that's very, very unhealthy for people. So we came here to counter the Summit of the Horse, which is the conference that the pro-horse slaughter people were putting on. And they were coming here for 3 days to strategize about how to slaughter our wild horses, how to increase the demand for horse meat, and how to open horse slaughter plants in America. They thought Oklahoma would be the perfect place. They have some legislators here who are very pro-horse slaughter, who are pushing for some bills. But they found out that apparently that's not the case. They did not find enough support, and they had to actually cancel their conference. So the bills in Oklahoma that they've tried to push through. There was HB 2758, which was sponsored by Jerry McPeak. And this bill would give horse slaughter plants 50% tax incentives to come here. So they basically wanted to really invite them here and make sure that they didn't pay any taxes whatsoever and they could do whatever they want. In several states, there are also gag bills being introduced that would prevent anyone from suing a horse slaughter plant, and that would deem protesters terrorists. There was also a bill here in Oklahoma that was an empty bill, and it effectively proposed to slaughter our wild horses. And this issue being very pertinent for Oklahomans, I'd like to introduce you to Scott Beckstead of the Humane Society of the United States.
Thank you, Simone. As she said, I'm Scott Beckstead. I am the Senior Oregon Director for the Humane Society of the United States. We stand at a very critical juncture in our history as a people. When Congress funded horse slaughter inspections last November, it created a renewed push by the meat industry to turn horses into a food animal, American horses into a food animal. So let's first ask, what does the horse mean to Americans? 80% of Americans, according to a poll taken in January, strongly oppose the slaughter of horses for human consumption. Why is that? Because in the United States, we view horses not as food animals, but as companions and partners in work, recreation, and sport. Supporters of horse slaughter would like the American people to dismiss that. They would like to turn their backs on over 200 years of American culture that holds the horse as a trusted friend. The horse carried our soldiers and native warriors alike into battle. We think of General Washington leading his troops astride his magnificent Arabian stallion, or Robert E. Lee reviewing his troops with Traveler, his stout, never say die gray gelding. The issue of horse slaughter can be reduced to that question: what does this animal mean to Americans? It's not just a question of animal policy, animal welfare policy. It really goes to the very heart of who we are as a people. The horse played a central role in the development of America, and our love and admiration of horses is an essential part of the American character. This is more than just saving animals. It's a question of whether we as a people will betray a trusted friend. All of us here today are horse owners. We are all invested in this fight because we go out every day and care for these amazing animals who in turn give us the blessing of their friendship and their service. We support the horse industry every time we buy grain, hay, call a vet, hire a farrier, buy a horse trailer, or a pickup to pull it. Those who wish to consign horses to the lowly rank of food animal claim to speak for the horse industry. But let there be no mistake. Supporters of horse slaughter do not speak for the horse industry. They speak for the meat industry. Let's take a look at the biggest lies of the horse slaughter supporters. First, horse slaughter is not humane euthanasia. Humane euthanasia is calling a veterinarian to your farm to give your horse a quiet, peaceful death surrounded by those he knows and trusts. Horse slaughter is killing and butchering a perfectly healthy horse so it can be eaten by foreigners. Don't be misled into thinking that slaughter in the United States can ever be humane, no matter how regulated it is. Last night, I spent 2 hours looking at over 200 photographs taken by the USDA when the last slaughter plants were operating here in the United States. The pictures of the suffering are so graphic and so horrible, I chose not to show them to you today. By the way, I can provide them to members of the press if you'd like. Slaughter in the United States is inhumane. It is inhumane in Canada. It is inhumane in Mexico. Don't believe the lie that if we have slaughter in the United States, it will be regulated and humane. Second, horse slaughter is not good for communities. In all 3 communities where the last U.S. slaughter plants operated, they wore out their welcome. They caused pollution, they gave out an unbearable stench, they caused property values to drop, they caused local crime rates to soar. Profits from these foreign-owned businesses all went overseas, and they did everything they could to avoid paying their property taxes and the fines that were constantly being levied against them for their environmental pollution. Paula Bacon, the former mayor of Kaufman, Texas, said, "As a community leader where we are directly impacted by the horse slaughter industry, I can assure you the economic development return to our community is negative. The foreign-owned companies profit at our expense." Third, horse slaughter is bad for local economies. The last 3 plants employed no more than a few dozen workers in dangerous, high-stress, low-paying jobs. Because of the smell, the pollution, and the public distaste for their bloody and cruel business, companies looking to locate in those communities looked elsewhere because they didn't want to be associated with the overwhelming negative stigma of horse slaughter. Fourth, horse slaughter is not the only option for old, skinny horses. Horse butchers only profit from fat, healthy animals, which is why the USDA has said that over 92% of all American horses slaughtered for human consumption are young animals in good condition, horses that would otherwise be candidates for riding, recreation, and companionship. The vast majority of horse owners do the right thing when their animal is old or sick. They call the vet and they have their animal peacefully euthanized, whereas slaughter is the primary means of disposal for reckless breeders who turn out more animals than the market can sustain. Fifth, a ban on slaughter will not lead to abandonment and neglect. Decades of overbreeding and a poor economy, along with increased public concern for animal neglect generally, have caused an increase in the reported incidence of horse neglect. Most neglect cases involve horse owners who are not inclined to sell their horses anyway. And more horse owners are taking advantage of programs like hay banks, gelding clinics, and euthanasia clinics to make sure their horses receive the care they need. If we really want to help the horse industry, we need to finally and permanently ban horse slaughter for human consumption by passing the American Horse Slaughter Prevention Act. A ban on slaughter will result in more careful and refined breeding practices that will emphasize quality over quantity, create a sustainable market, boost prices, and create an overall healthier horse industry. A ban will spare all horse owners the prospect of having their trusted friends stolen and sold by cruel and greedy kill buyers who care not where a horse comes from or whether it's suffering, but only what price it will bring. I want to close by addressing directly any person or entity who might be considered in investing in a horse slaughter enterprise in the United States. Consider what you will be facing. Endless litigation from the moment the first permit or application or zoning request is filed. Endless protests and public fury by the 80% of Americans who oppose horse slaughter. Strict regulatory scrutiny by local, state, federal, and even international bodies. And the promise, not just the prospect, but the promise that inevitably your enterprise will become illegal under state law, federal law, or both. Investing in horse slaughter is a bad business move. The American horse has given its heart, its body, and its spirit in service to us. We stand now to return the favor to our equine friends and to declare that we will not allow horse slaughter to return to the United States. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Scott. And now I'd like to introduce to you Ginger Catherines of the Cloud Foundation. She is a filmmaker of the wonderful documentary of Cloud, whom she has chronicled since his birth about 17 years ago. There is no one who has watched, documented our wild horses more than Ginger Catherines.
Thank you. Hi, thanks everybody for coming. Thank you, Simona, for inviting us to represent wild horses here today. Some of the images you see, that's a friend of mine right there, Cloud. I would add him to Scott's list of some of the iconic horses that he mentioned to you. He still, bless his heart, lives wild with his family. And you know, whenever I've spoken, I've asked the question, where are wild horses safest? In the wild, thank you. Exactly right. In the wild, with their families, in their homes. But unfortunately, the course that the government has taken since the Wild Horse and Burro Act was passed in 1971 is not to preserve, but to remove. And as a result, we currently have over 46,000 horses in holding. Some in dirt paddocks throughout the country, some in eastern Oklahoma in pastures. But nevertheless, they do not have their families with them, and their lives have really been taken from them. Let me just give you a little background on why wild horses are more vulnerable now than they were 8 years ago. And I know some of you know this story, but just a few days before Thanksgiving, before Congress was going to recess, a senator from Montana named Conrad Burns slipped a one-page rider into the 3,300-page appropriations bill. Some knew he was going to do it. Virtually, I mean, none of the public knew, but Senator Reed from Nevada knew, because he had worked out a deal with Conrad. If Conrad would vote for something Reed wanted, Reed would allow Conrad to slip this rider in to the appropriations bill. The rider, in effect, took back the protections of wild horses as they were written in the Wild Horse and Burro Act. Any horse over the age of 10, or those horses that were offered for adoption 3 times unsuccessfully, could be sold. The BLM denies knowing that they have sold horses to slaughter or to slaughter buyers, but believe me, thousands of wild horses have met their fate in Mexico and Canada. Okay, that was in 2004. In 2008, Pat Haight, who is a lady, a PhD in Arizona who runs the Conquistador program, She's very fond of Spanish horses. The prior horses that you see here are of Spanish descent. But Pat FOIA'd because she heard the word and the murmurings of slaughter. And so she was wise enough to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. You can write a FOIA request, and that Freedom of Information Act usually requires that the government produce paperwork for you that you are requesting. In this case, anything to do with slaughter. She received 800 pages of documents. And those documents, when you read them, are like a Holocaust document. Very disturbing indeed. I can read you some direct quotes from these documents, but what they outlined was the way that BLM intended to kill thousands of Mustangs, calling it euthanasia. And of course, as Scott pointed out, euthanasia is not killing healthy animals. Euthanasia is killing anything that is in distress and needs to end its suffering through a lethal injection. This document, the documents that Pat got, reveal the team leader meetings, minutes from the meetings in which they outline killing thousands of horses and the need for, quote, psychological counseling for employees asked to kill healthy wild horses. The team leaders carried out, or didn't carry out, thank God, but they could, created scenarios for killing Mustangs using barbiturates, gunshots, and captive bolts. Bodies would be disposed of through rendering, burial, and incineration. Quote, security at facilities and at gathers would be needed to increase to combat eco-terrorism. I guess that's us eco-terrorists out here. Well, you know, you might say, well, that was then and this is now. Okay, this is now. In the last 9 months, Secretary of the Interior Ken Salazar has appointed 2 openly pro-horse slaughter members to the BLM National Advisory Board for Wild Horses and Burros. This board recommends to BLM how to manage wild horses. The latest appointee is Callie Hendrickson from my home state of Colorado, who will attend her first meeting April 23rd in Reno. To add insult to injury, do you know who Callie is supposed to represent on the board? The public, the general public, you and me. I mean, does Callie Hendrickson represent us, the general public? I mean, it's obviously not. 80% of the American public finds horse slaughter for human consumption abhorrent, and yet she sits on this board. And so the only thing that really stands in the way of them beginning to do this is the American public. If the American public can express their opinions to their elected officials, then I do not think that BLM can proceed regardless of whether they have a pro-slaughter board or not. And so peaceful protest, calls to your legislators must be done. And I mean, there's nothing more magnificent than these guys. So do what you can, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginger. Now, as last speaker, I'd like to introduce R.T. Fitch, a writer and director of Wild Horse Freedom Federation.
Thank you, Simone. I'm working under several deficits here. Number one, using both of my hands at the same time. And then the fact that I just received my assignment for what I was going to talk about today, last night. So I just brought a few notes with me to make sure I'm not off the mark. But before I get started, I just want to bring something up. It's the fact that it's very, very rare that we as advocates can share some good news about our efforts to improve the welfare of our American equines. And we have some good news very, very quickly. It's been a great couple of weeks for the advocacy. We've had some victories. Just several short weeks ago, if you've been watching the news and watching what's going on with horse slaughter, we had a resounding victory in Mountain Grove, Missouri, where for the first time in many years, there was an attempt made to put up a slaughter plant. And after the folks that were promoting the plant said 100% of the residents were for it, she was literally run out of the town on a rail. That's a victory and a resounding defeat against those who want to earn an extra buck on the back of our American horses. Also last week, EWA's Children's Letter Writing Campaign for the U.S. Congress, along with Children for Horses, delivered over 1,000 horses, I wish it was horses, letters to the members of Congress in an effort beseeching them to ban horse slaughter in the United States. It was great to participate with that. Of course, we've already mentioned it, the second annual Slaughter Summit of the Horse here that was to be held here in Oklahoma City was canceled. That's good for the horses. We've had 2 pro-horse anti-slaughter conferences or summits that were held in the last week. Of course, we've got this one now, and we had a lot of folks travel up to Chatham, New York, to celebrate the horse and to strategize on how to ensure their future safety. And finally, perhaps it hasn't received a lot of press, but something else that's very, very important is that our good friends at Front Range Equine Rescue and the Humane Society of the United States filed last Tuesday a legal petition with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration to prevent former companion working competition and wild horses from being used as human food. And that's where I'd like to land here for just a few moments. And I promise not to be emotional. This is a scientific issue, and so we'll try to get you through very, very quickly here on why horse meat is so toxic. This 79-page petition alleges that the drugs that we as Americans give our horses throughout the course of their lives are banned by the FDA and or are potentially dangerous to humans. Using these horses for human consumption creates an unacceptable and potentially illegal public health threat under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. Current FDA rules do not require sufficient testing or documentation to ensure that former companion and other non-livestock horses, and remember we're talking about horses and the horse industry and not the meat industry. Businesses looking to start up American horse slaughterhouses have been actively promoting that horse meat, even though the animals in our culture have never been intended for food. These businesses and their misguided investors are proceeding despite their awareness that virtually every single U.S. horse who ends up in slaughter has been exposed to a plethora of proven dangerous drugs, many of which are specifically outlawed for animals intended for food. The FDA does not adequately regulate the flow of potential toxic meat, despite the human health and animal welfare risks associated with it, and the petition documents more than 110 examples of drugs and other substances which are or should be prohibited in food-producing horses, and that's what I brought up here. The document itself is 79 pages. This is the listing, 110 of dangerous drugs that can be and or are present in our American horses. And I actually had intended to go through a few of them, but instead, just something very simple. Any horse owner knows what ivermectin is. It is the wormer that we give our horses in an effort to deworm them and ensure that they're healthy. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to read upside down. Warning, do not use in horses intended for human consumption. And on the bulk of veterinary medications that are set up for horses, you will find the very same warning. And we all use this. This is not new information. It's just that it's been formally presented to the U.S. government. You'll notice in your press pack, for those of you members of the press that picked it up, the Food and Chemical Toxicology Report that talks about bute and the usage to horses that are brought up in slaughter. If any of you have questions on this documentation, I'd be more than glad to give you the links and or the paperwork. As I said, there's many scientific papers that have been written on the dangers of consuming horse meat that have been treated with and their industry standard drugs. They're nothing out of line at all. And the EU, the European Union, has laid down very distinct and strict guidelines on drugs in horse meat that in reality renders virtually every horse in the United States unsuitable for human consumption. Yet the anti-horse or pro-slaughter faction, they continue to press on with their heads in the sand, blinded by the possibility of making a few extra dollars, and they continue to promote the idea that horse flesh is healthy and something that all humans should be dining upon. So with all of the other issues aside that we've discussed, the brutality, the inhumanity, the legality of horse slaughter, the destruction of community, and the death of an American icon, we can always and simply distill our distaste for the predatory business of horse slaughter down to one simple and scientific proven fact. And it's so simple. And it's that horse meat is unsafe. Full stop. End of mission. Thank you.
Thank you, RT. So in our press release, we stated a few questions that Americans might have. Do we need horse slaughter? Will it make it more humane if we have horse slaughter plants in America? If we have horse slaughter plants in America, will that actually stop our horses from being exported across our borders? And we'll try to answer most of all of those questions, because we do not need horse slaughter. We do not want horse slaughter, and we will not tolerate horse slaughter. What is one of their legs to stand on that they think they have, and what they're trying to push in the media? You will see some pieces come out that exaggerate how many sad, neglected, abused, and unwanted horses we have in America. There's a reason for that. They want to scare America into thinking that we may need horse slaughter. Well, the opposite is true. We have an overpopulation problem of horses, either big or small, because we have horse slaughter available. It is a very lucrative convenience for large breeding industries that might breed 100 horses, pick out the best ones, and send 95 to slaughter. That is the same as if you would buy a lottery ticket. You'd have 5 winning tickets, but what if you could get your money back for the other 95? It is no wonder that they're fighting hard to maintain that lucrative convenience. So they have all kinds of fabrications that they throw out there to make America think that we need it. So it's exactly the opposite. Horse slaughter encourages overbreeding. They are looking for our healthy, for our young, and for our fat horses. They leave the sick, the skinny for society to take care of. So we have chosen not to show you the most graphic videos because it will make anyone nauseous. But we will be showing a 4-minute video of a former kill buyer who confesses as to what he used to do, and it is just a person talking, but it is very graphic just to hear him describe what happens, and there are a few graphic photos in it. So I want to give everybody an opportunity who doesn't want to see that. They can leave for 4 minutes, because America needs to know the atrocities that befall our American horses today.
Recollection. Maybe off on a date or something, but everything I've told you is true. Things I've experienced on my own. Non-stop. No stop for drink, no stop for food. If one falls down, he gets hot-shotted till he gets up. If he can't get up, he spins a trip laid down underneath them other horses. And the bad thing about that, you got one down, he's kicking for his life, he's going to knock another one down. And you end up with a domino effect. Crippled horses everywhere. And the truck just keeps rolling. When you load these horses, you should make an attempt to sort them. There's some horses you just flat can't get in the bottom deck. They just physically can't get in there. But others that shouldn't get in there are put in there. They're hot-shotted down that ramp, and when they're going down that ramp and they go through that doorway, the doorway is a little bit lower than the deck. And when you're behind them with a hot shot, they're moving forward, and they'll hit the top of that door jamb, and it'll just scalp that wither, pull the hair and the hide and meat right off. A truck driver taught me a trick. He'd shoot him in the eye with a BB gun if he had a kicker. When he put it on the truck, if the stud was kicking, he'd shoot it in the eye. And that BB had impeded in its eyeball, and the pain would be so intense and so long-lasting that he wouldn't think about kicking. He'd be more thinking about what's going on with my eyeball. So I tied this mare's head right there in the sale yard, tied her head to a post, and I had a fiberglass stock cane. It must have been 5 feet long. And I don't remember if it was left eye or right. I think I actually ruptured the eyeball, but I jobbed that cane in there, I don't know how many times, until I had her head down, and that eye was swollen shut. And that, I got to admit, it did work. That mare didn't kick no more. But that kind of situation is pretty commonplace. I've taken a horse before that studs chew on other horses in the trailer, and then the horses go to jump, and then you get one down, and before you know it, you got a whole bunch down. So another trick I learned was to wire their mouth shut. You run a horse in the chute and take baling wire. You usually keep a halter on them, and in that corner ring on the halter, you wire your baling wire off, and then you dally it tight around that horse's mouth so he can't open that mouth. You can't open it, he can't bite. But then that horse he's going to try to bite, try to open his mouth. It's going to restrict his air. He can't swallow on nothing. But you wire him up tight, and you run him in the trailer, and he spends the next 1,700 miles without even being able to open his mouth. What it did is it caught that horse's hide right below the knee and cut it and ripped that hide plumb down to his hock. I mean, just like you shoved your sock down over your ankle. And we didn't have no truck going out. That might have been one of the times when I was between, but I knew where to take him, was up to Hopewell. So we, I don't remember where we throwed him down or just eared him down or what, but we got that hide jerked back up and wrapped it up with who knows what, I don't know, maybe we might even use gauze on it, I don't know. But the horse didn't get, it had dirt and crap in it, and he went to Hopewell. We dumped him out up there at pillar pins, and he stood there and no telling what kind of fat had to hurt for days until got a truckload together to ship on up. Then he would stand in the truck to ship to Washington. It was not at all unusual to get a kill report back that listed 1 to whatever head of horses dead in transit. And then, like I say, it was a pretty common occurrence. I would say it was about half the time you'd end up with dead horses on the truck.
That was the least graphic video that we thought we would use today. We cannot make it any prettier. That's simply the way it is. And if the pro-horse slaughter faction truly cared about horses the way that they say they do, they would turn their millions of dollars in breed incentives into funds for gelding, into euthanasia funds, and into funds for horse rescues. Americans don't eat horses. 80% of Americans are against horse slaughter, and we're here today to represent all those Americans. We do not need it, we do not want it, and we will not tolerate it. Thank you very much. So we have a live online audience. We have a live audience here, and we have the press. So I'm going to ask the press, who might be in a hurry, if there's any questions that you have for our expert panel today.
Mainly what veterinarians have studied about their tissue learning and how long it actually stays in their system.
Question was about phenylbutazone itself. And oh, did you want answered?
I can chime in after your
Okay. So phenylbutazone is absolutely banned in food animals by the FDA, yet all those horses are still crossing our borders, and they are ending up on somebody's plate. And it can have horrible effects on humans. There's idiosyncratic, lethal effects that can actually happen. It never leaves the horse meat itself. So there is no period of time where that horse meat is ever going to be safe. Horses are just not bred for human consumption in America.
State that a animal can't have these drugs, and we don't have those animals in this country. So
that's right. I mean, the USDA has a specific set of regulations for animals that are slaughtered for human consumption. And we don't raise horses for food in the United States. So this is really a big, I think what you're identifying is a really big unanswered question that the pro-slaughter people really have yet to address. Where is your market? Where are you going to sell this food? Even the pet food companies won't use American horse meat anymore because of the toxins in it. The European Union will not want our horse meat. and awareness is growing, by the way, in Europe of the toxic dangers of American horse meat. So where exactly is your profit? Where's your market? Who are you going to sell to?
Also, hasn't it been linked to the EU, the rise in birth defects when American horses were transported over there? The rise in birth defects in the EU is over 60%.
I've not heard that, but considering the dangers of Butte that have been identified, it certainly wouldn't be out of the question.
Let me just add that wild horse slaughter proponents have said all natural all the time in regard to wild horses. When wild horses are unfortunately rounded up, and there is no overpopulation of wild horses, by the way, when they're rounded up, they're regularly given a series of shots. They are wormed. They are given coggins because they're normally transported across state lines. So they get a full battery of drugs that also render them unsafe for human consumption. I just wanted to add that. Don't think that these guys, you know, are safe to eat either. Not that you would.
The Humane Society of the United States documented literally hundreds of incidents all over the United States where horse rescues, families looking for a horse for their kids, ordinary horse people were being outbid by the kill buyers, or they were having to pay more and more and more because they were being bid against by the kill buyers. Okay, so when we talk about the myth of the unwanted horse, you hear a lot of pro-slaughter people talk about the unwanted horse. It's a myth. And for the pro-horse slaughter people saying that there are 100,000 too many horses in the United States, what are we going to do with the 100,000 horses? The horse industry, the horse-owning public, will easily absorb that number. There are over 9 million horses in the United States. And if the kill buyers would get out of the business, the people who would go back to those sales are going to be the people that are looking for a pony for their kids or their next riding horse or a good trail horse or whatever. So yeah, you've identified an important issue.
So further on, for these horses that really are neglected and really do need our help.
Right, and rescues could be in the business of providing sanctuary to horses that really need sanctuary and finding good homes for these horses that just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and who then, of course, fall into the wrong hands. And we know that when the state of California banned horse slaughter, horse theft dropped by 34%. These kill buyers do not care where these horses come from. They're not asking any questions. All they see is so much per pound, and that's their bottom line. They don't care. And the last thing they care about, as you just saw, is how those animals are treated.
And who are the people that make the money? Does the U.S. government make any money from this industry, or who are the people that are actually benefiting from the profits of this industry, of the horse slaughter industry?
Well, you've got breeders, irresponsible breeders. I don't want to stereotype all breeders. There are some very, very good people out there who breed responsibly. You know, just like, you know, with dog breeders, and I mean, there's good people who love their animals and who take good care of their animals. But there are also some bad apples, and I would say that a smaller number of bad apples is creating the problem that all of us are here talking about today. They breed, as was said, you know, 100 quarter horse mares. The quarter horse people are famous for this. They breed 100 mares, knowing that one of those foals is going to amount to anything. And they can just send the other 99 off to the feedlot.
And the only other people that benefit, does it actually cost the U.S. government money to open slaughterhouses in America?
The taxpayers are going to be footing the bill to benefit foreign corporations. Imagine that. Imagine if we were being asked to fund inspection of dog slaughter for the benefit of the Chinese or the Koreans. Why should the American taxpayer be forced to pay to inspect food for foreign diners of an animal that 80% of us want protected from that? It doesn't make any sense.
Not Not at all. And just to tag on, not to interrupt, but just tag on to your question before we change venue here of where the questions come from, is that the U.S. government is spending, the federal government, millions and millions and millions of your dollars in not only taking the perfectly healthy wild horses off the range, but they're warehousing them right now here in eastern Oklahoma with private individuals who are making millions of dollars when those horses would cost you zero out on the open range. But let's change gears real quick. Stephanie, do you have any questions from online?
I have quite a few questions here. One is, can you tell us more about the case with Dennis Chavez, if I'm saying that right,
New Mexico.
Of
The one in
lot in New Mexico? That is one question that someone's addressing about the video that was seen and what's happening in these feedlots. And then the other is, what is the best thing that the American people can do right now to help address this issue? Whether it's contacting their senators or congressmen, whatever it is. Those are the first two questions, and then there's more coming.
Okay, allow me to go backwards and answer the last question first. And what the American public can do right now, one of the easiest and cheapest things to do is to increase the awareness of their family, their friends, their neighbors on these issues. These organizations here have fact pages, and along with the HSUS, where you can go and pull out all the information on the issues of the wild horses and also the slaughter issue. Likewise, if you stay in touch, there's many times that we have campaigns where we talk about petitions, where we talk about making contact with your legislatures in regards to given issues.
You know, that's what we need. We need documentation, we need legislation, we need media attention, and we need Americans to stand up, not just for horses, but for themselves, for who we are as Americans. So the ban on horse slaughter, which is the Horse Slaughter Prevention Act of 2011, which is S 1176 in the Senate, and it's HR 2699 in the House. And we have a lot of co-sponsors for these bills, but these bills need to be pushed through. We need Americans to stand up and give their legislators a call and tell them we need that legislation passed. That's the only way we're going to do it. And it doesn't take very much. It takes you 1 minute to make that call and to write that email. So that's really what we're asking the public to do.
Want to take one more?
One more from online, I think, unless there's anyone else in the audience. So do you have?
I do. So you spoke about the two bills. Can you elaborate for the average American how they can actually contact their legislators? A lot of people don't know, or they don't know that they have the power to do that.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that question. So yes, everyone has 2 senators and 1 representative in their district. It's easy to look up. There are several sites where you can go, where you can just type in where you live, and it will come up who's your senator and who's your representative. And from that point on, all you have to do is call a switchboard in Washington, D.C., and they will connect you to your legislator. So even if you don't know who your legislator is, call that number. Ask who your legislator is. Those people are very helpful. They will tell you who it is. They will connect you with them, and you will speak with someone right away. And you just give them your opinion on what you think of horse slaughter in America, what you think of the roundup of the last of our remaining wild horses that we have in America. We need to protect those last 20,000. Are we done? Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone coming. Thank you for all that you guys do online as well to stand up for horses. Thank you to the online audience, and thank you so much to the press for being here, telling the story for us.
And I get right next to you, and thank you for all that you did. We need a round of applause for Simone. Simone did have help, but she pretty much did a one-person committee show on this, and if you start looking like me soon, that'd be understandable from all the stress. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.